Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back. We hope you guys are doing as good as you can this week. There's still a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, but we hope you guys are hanging in there.
Yeah, as we always say, we record a little bit ahead of time, and so by the time this episode's released, there is no telling what is going to be happening in the world. So hopefully everyone is still okay, and everything is going smoothly for everyone.
Especially in the year of 2020, where from one day to the next, there could be a whole new world crisis going on. So as two white women who don't have to directly deal with racial inequality, we are still struggling with everything going on in the world. So those of you who do face this on a daily basis, we're just thinking of you, and we can only imagine how you feel during all of this, but we just want you to know that we do stand with you, that we are here for you guys. Please let us know what we as white women can do to be better allies. We do our best, but we don't always get it right. So definitely let us know how we can help you.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing a lot too, is people being like, you're going to mess up. Like, as a white person, You don't understand you're going to mess up, but just be open to the criticism and change, and don't let it just, like, keep you quiet. Don't let, like, the fear of being wrong keep you quiet. I mean, don't go out and say horrible things, but if you have good intentions and think you're saying the right thing and you're not, be open to being like, okay, maybe that was wrong. So.
Yes. And I've addressed that with my black friends as well. I've been like, hey, look, if I ever say something that's not exactly correct, or if there's like a better way to say it, please call me out and let me know. Like, I will never be offended. Like, and I think when people do know your intentions, that it's a much easier conversation to have. So just in general, let people know your intentions and let them know that you are open to being called out, because we all need to be called out sometimes, because we're not perfect, and especially as white people who are having to learn this at 20, 30, 50, 60 years old. You know, it's like the tweet, I don't know what it's shared as lately, but, you know, that white people are learning about racism instead of experiencing it, you know? And I don't think that's to say that white people are just like, oh, no, racism has never happened, but I feel like it's come to the forefront more lately, and more people who have not been able to recognize it before are now starting to. So I think that's a good thing, and think that maybe we are going in the right direction, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope change happens, and I hope the world is a little bit brighter for my children and their children. So
yes,
unless 2020 the world just blows up, which is a strong possibility. I'm not ruling it out.
Which could happen. Yeah, that is yeah, I also saw a meme yesterday that was like, what if it just doesn't stop, and it's like December 31st, 2020, like 11:59 p.m., and then it's like 11:60, and it's just like
it just keeps going. It just keeps going.
It's like this year just doesn't end.
But I did see something, I can't remember if you or if it was Tiffany that shared it in the group, about maybe like 2020 is like this because there needs to be change, and so it's uncomfortable, and it's, you know, kind of getting everyone on edge, but that the result of it will be like a better, brighter world. So maybe it's just COVID kind of slowed us down, made us stay home, and then unfortunately the George Floyd murder happened, and it just kind of opened the doors for change, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
And the Breonna Taylor case as well, that I feel like wasn't widely publicized at the time that it happened. I know I personally did not hear about it until like months afterward, because that happened back in March, and we're now in June, and it was only within the last couple of weeks that I was made aware of it. And Andrew and I have gone to some of the Black Lives Matter protests here in Richmond, and again, I say this as a white woman, so I'm sorry if this isn't the best way to phrase this, but it was hopeful to see so many people standing up and on the same side, and I don't want that to diminish the crisis that's happening right now and just be like, oh, look, everyone came together and it's going to be fine, because I completely acknowledge that it's not that simple. But it was very empowering and hopeful to be in a group of so many people who feel the same way and are ready for change, especially so many young people that are going to be the ones that change this world. Like, I don't know if you saw the Black Lives Matter protest in Nashville that 4 teenage girls organized by themselves, and there was like over 10,000 people there.
Yeah.
Like this is the generation we need to change this world. So
yes, definitely.
Also not related, but yesterday, just for a funny Andrew story, because I'm sure you guys just love those so much. So we were in the car picking up Starbucks, like we do, and Andrew pulls open his podcast app, and he's like, oh, look, my favorite podcast is out. And so he starts playing our podcast on, like, 2 times the speed, which is how he listens to everything. So here's, like, me and Courtney, hi, I'm Jaclyn, hi, I'm Courtney. And then, like, we get into the case, and he's like, well, that's enough of that. He just turns it off.
He's like, all right, I got the banter, that's all I care about.
He's like, okay, well, that's... And I'm like, oh, okay, great, thanks for your support. But he's like, I download it every week, so there you go, you're welcome. So, we got a lot of positive feedback on our Vigilante Justice series. If you haven't listened to that one yet, it's not like a part 1, part 2. This is more just like a volume 2. So they're all independent stories, so you can listen to them in any order. Don't feel like you need to go back and listen to that one first. But a lot of you said that you liked it, and you liked the kind of like mini stories, especially because we are trying to do cases that may not be as widely known. So we're going to do that again today. So I'm going to jump into my first case. Courtney, are you familiar with the case of Timothy Chandler?
I don't think so.
Okay. I had never heard of this case, but it's another local to Tennessee case.
I know you'll say it, but what year did it happen?
2007.
Still little baby Courtney who was pretending the world didn't exist.
So I got my sources from a CBS News article, a Fox News article, a WVLT, which is a local news station, a Knoxville News Sentinel article, as well as an article from thestranger.com. So in May of 2007, in Helenwood, Tennessee, which Helenwood is a small mountain town of about 800 people, and it's about 15 miles south of the Kentucky border. So it's pretty much almost Kentucky. Okay. A very small mountain town. The annual household income is $17,700. So that is about half of the annual average household income for Tennessee as a whole. So,
yeah.
So 53-year-old school bus driver Timothy Chandler gave his mother-in-law a CD to copy some computer programs onto. And so on this CD, she finds more than 100 images of child pornography.
That is not what you want to find.
Nope. And I'm like, did you just forget they were on there? Like,
you were like, oh no, this is a blank disc. And
yeah, like did you not check that? Did you think that she just wasn't gonna open? I don't know. But she's like, yep, nope, I'm gonna call the police. So she does, and so she tells them. So he was arrested on August 20th. Now Timothy had previously spent 18 months in an Ohio jail for, quote, gross sexual imposition involving girls who were aged 1 and 4.
Ew.
So, and like I said, he was a school bus driver. So I could not find if at the time of this case in 2007, if he was still a school bus driver or if he just hadn't worked since then. And so that was the only like occupation title that he had.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was allowed to remain a school bus driver after the case in Ohio or not. But he had previously been in prison for this. So Timothy was released on a $100,000 bond after about 10 days in jail. So then on September 2nd, 39-year-old coal mining equipment mechanic Gary Lamar Sellers drove his friend, 37-year-old construction worker Robert Bell, to Chandler's house. So Bell gets out and he lights the house on fire, and then both of them drive to a nearby location so that they can watch the house burn to the ground.
Oh.
A neighbor named Alfred Butler, so he sees Timothy's house on fire, so he goes over and he's trying to like get the door open, but he said he couldn't open the door, but he was able to like bust a hole in the middle of the door. So he opens the door, like he gets the hole in the door, and then Timothy comes to the door and he like helps him crawl out. But then his wife isn't out yet. So then Timothy goes back in. So he grabs his wife, who is 37-year-old Melissa Chandler, and he drags her through the hole, but she's unconscious. They attempt CPR, but she later dies at the hospital. So his wife, who had nothing to do with these child pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sellers and Bell tell police that they didn't intend for anyone to die. They just wanted to, quote, scare the pervert away from their town. But
there's other ways to do that than setting an occupied house on fire. Like,
And they also had a child. I don't know how old their child was, but like there's reports from Timothy who's like, my kid could have been in the house too. Like, you just set this house on fire. Like, you don't even know who's home and who's not. And apparently there had been a verbal altercation in the yard earlier that day before they set the house on fire. And Bell's court-appointed lawyer said, and I put this quote in because I was just like, what? That he, quote, feels like it was a very unfortunate incident, end quote.
Okay.
You set a house on fire. That's not an unfortunate incident. This wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Like, it was an accident that you killed the wrong person, but your actions were not an accident. So then, in October of this year, Timothy Chandler pleaded guilty to sexual exploitation of a minor. He served no jail time. Okay? This was... He had 100 images of child pornography and had previously been in jail on sexual charges. But he served no jail time. He received 5 years probation. He had to pay court costs, and he had to register as a sex offender. So,
honestly, that's what I see all the time. Where it's just like, they don't spend any jail time, and they're out on probation, and it's like, bye, have fun.
Okay, good luck. Don't do it again. See you later. So then on May 19th, 2008... Robert Bell pleaded guilty to aggravated arson and second-degree murder and agreed to testify against his co-defendant, Gary Sellers. So Robert Bell was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his part in this crime. Gary Sellers was convicted of facilitation to aggravated arson. Remember, he is not the one that caught the house on fire, but he did drive Bell and was aware of it and watched the whole thing.
Yeah, he was like an accomplice. He just didn't light the match.
And so Courtney had to look this one up for me because she's a PI and has some fancy database that I could not find on the Google. And so it looks like he maybe got like a combined prison probation sentence of 25 years total.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
Okay, because he's currently on probation. So we can't find exactly how many years he was sentenced to, but we know that he did spend time in prison and is currently on probation as part of this aggravated arson, but also murder. So,
yeah.
That's still, like I said, there's not a whole lot of details, but it took a lot of crazy twists and turns that I was not expecting.
Yeah, definitely. No, that was a good one. I hadn't heard of that. I'm really surprised because... I feel like I would have. Like, that's 2, like, Knoxville ones that I just had no idea happened.
Because, like, 2007, I'm like, okay, like, I was in high school, but, like, I feel like I would have heard of something like that, but I don't know.
Guess not. Okay, so, when I was searching last time, I think I mentioned in the episode, this is one I wanted to do, but Kevin told me to do the other one.
Yes.
And
I'm very excited to know what this is.
So, basically, last time I was looking up, like, vigilante cases, this kept coming up and kept coming up. So, I just decided to do it. I'm gonna go probably one of the world's most famous vigilante killers.
Oh.
Jack Ruby.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I used a Britannica article and a History.com article. History.com is our best friend. So, okay, so Jack Ruby, his original name was Jack Rubenstein, and he was born in Chicago in March 1911. The Britannica article said the 25th, but they put a question mark next to it, so I guess they're not really sure, like, what day he was born, but they're like, it was probably around this time.
Which makes sense.
And so... he was born to Polish immigrants, and he was raised in the Jewish faith. And his parents did separate when he was around 10. And he already had kind of an unstable life. I mean, if you think back, this is the early 1900s, and he's Jewish. And then everything going on in the world, everyone liked to blame the Jews for every problem they had for some reason. Just their little convenient scapegoat. So, he kind of had, like, an unstable life, and then his parents separating, like, just made it worse. He had a really, really bad temper, and his nickname was Sparky, not Dennis Rader's penis, but...
I mean, that's all I'm ever going to think of now when I think of Sparky is Dennis Rader's penis, so...
I know, I read it, and I was like, oh, thanks, Dennis. But yeah, his temper was just, like, so bad, they called him Sparky, because it was just, like, anything would just, like, set him off. And so, He was eventually sent to an institute for juvenile research because he just refused to go to school, and his mom was like, he's out of control. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't control him. But the institute also found his mother was just unfit to care for him as well. And so then he kind of goes back and forth. It said he was like in a few foster homes, but also that he was like back with his mom and then back in the foster homes during his teenage years. And so they think at like 16, he just left school and he was like moving around, working odd jobs, just trying to make a living for himself. And then he did serve in the U.S. Air Force during World War II. So from like 1943 to 1946, he was in the Air Force. And after that, he moved to Dallas, Texas to help run the Singapore Supper Club, which was later called the Silver Spur Club. And it was owned by his sister. So he went to help out. And then this year is when he legally changed his name to Jack Ruby.
Does it say why?
No. I don't know if it's because it was more of like a Jewish last name. And he was like, or if he was obvious. Trying to like, he was like, Jack Ruby sounds tougher. I don't know. It didn't really say.
I should know if it's because I assumed it was like the Jewish like
last
relation. Yeah.
And so then he did start becoming more and more involved with other nightclubs as well. He was kind of like a bouncer. There's kind of rumors that he was with the mob. But his temper really did not settle with age. And he just kept getting involved in violent incidents. So he was like arrested for a few minor offenses, but he had quite a few friends in the police department, so he was never charged with anything. So he was just kind of like, I'm good, bye guys.
Sounds familiar. Anyway.
Right? So then, on November 22nd, 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed President John F. Kennedy. And there's a lot of theories on if Oswald did it or not, and I'd love to do an episode on this. So if you're interested, let us know.
Yes.
But I'm not going to talk about it here because then we'd be here forever. And for the sake of this story, we're just going to say it was Lee Harvey Oswald that killed him. So he was arrested and taken to the police department. Ruby was so upset and angered by this assassination. Like, he was pissed. And he even was, like, attending the press conferences about it. And so 2 days after the murder, Oswald was being transferred to a secure jail. And as the police and the news cameramen are all standing by and recording, Jack Ruby walks out of the crowd and just fatally shoots Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald? Lee Harvey. Anyway.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald. Sounds like a song. Jesus.
I know,
okay.
right?
And so, of course, Ruby was immediately detained and was like, all right, we gotta get him in jail. He said he was just really distraught over the assassination, and he didn't want Jackie Kennedy to have to testify at Oswald's trial. And he was like, I don't want to have to go through that. I'm angry. Mm-hmm. Guess he was a really big Kennedy fan. And so a lot of people did call him a hero because everyone's like, yeah, you did it. You took him down. But he was still charged and found guilty of first-degree murder.
Yeah.
And he did get the death penalty for it. So Ruby did appeal this conviction, and the courts did overturn it in October 1966 because Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's not like you're going to answer my question. I was just going to say if it says, like, what the basis of the appeal was.
There was an illegal testimony allowed at court. Okay. So basically, what I could find, it seemed that at trial there was, like, a testimony that was allowed saying, like, an oral confession of premeditation was made while he was in police custody. But that violates, like, a Texas criminal statute that, like, I guess maybe just because it's, like, an oral confession, like a hearsay kind of thing. Uh-huh. But it shouldn't have been allowed in the trial. And they were also like, all right, we're going to relocate this new trial. Because the first trial did also happen in Dallas, which is, like, everybody's going to know what this guy did. But before he could have a new trial, he died of a pulmonary embolism shortly after being diagnosed with cancer on January 3rd, 1967. So he never did get that new trial. There are some conspiracies that say Oswald didn't act alone, and, like, Ruby killed Oswald to keep him from talking, that, like, they were all in it together, and Ruby was like, Oswald's gonna go and just, like, tell them, like, this was some bigger conspiracy. But Ruby was, like, really offended that people thought this. And so there's the Warren Commission, which was basically, like, created to investigate the JFK assassination. And, like, Ruby, the whole time he was alive, was, like, trying to reach out to them and was like, listen, like, it wasn't me. I wasn't involved with, like, his killing. Like, nothing. And the Warren Commission, like, did investigate it. And they were like, okay, well, Ruby had, like, a lot of shady activities. Like, he didn't seem to do, like, any great things. But, like, he didn't have any, like, deep roots into organized crime or anything. So they were like, I don't think he was involved with the JFK assassination. But, again, maybe one day we'll do that because there's so many conspiracies on what actually happened. But for the sake of it, I just stuck to Jack Ruby, and that's Jack Ruby.
Yeah, that's a good one. And if you guys were alive in 1963 and you, like, watched this happen, please write in and let us know, because we'd like to hear about that, because that's, like, I can't imagine, I mean, I guess today, you know, everything is, like, recorded on phones, so we see it that way, but, like, a live, like, news conference, and,
And I wonder then, too, like, because now we have a delay.
Yeah.
In case things happen, they can, like, cut it out. So if it was just, like, you're sitting watching TV, and there it is.
Like, and you're just like, oh, I did not plan to see that, and my kids just saw that, and this is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, all the people there at the, like, parade, and, of course, poor Miss Jackie Kennedy. I can't imagine that either.
Yeah. No. And now we're going to take a quick break.
Seth Cohen.
Brooke Davis.
Blair Waldorf.
Sound familiar?
It Takes Three Network houses shows surrounding your favorite nostalgic teen dramas. Whether you are watching for the first time or you're binging for the 5th time, you'll definitely want to check us out.
You can listen to Tree Hill Talk, Let's Talk OC, and 3 Gossip Girls on your preferred listening platform. And for more information, visit ittakes3network.com.
Okay, so I know you know this next case. I don't know how much you know it. I think My Favorite Murder did it, so I don't know how many details
they covered
were presented. Yeah. But this is the subway vigilante, Bernhard Goetz. You'll know it when I start talking. So I got most of my information from several New York Times articles. I did read through the Wikipedia page. It is Wikipedia, but they do have all the there's like 80 sources at the bottom.
Yeah.
So definitely check out the Wikipedia page, and you can see all the primary sources there. Also, the Netflix series Trial by Media, episode 2 is about Bernhard Goetz. So I got a lot of information from that as well. And when I was watching this episode, I was texting Courtney, and I was like, I'm just so enraged right now. Like, I'm so angry.
Yeah, you were like, I'm so mad.
Yes, it was... Okay, we'll get into it. So, on December 22nd, 1984, 37-year-old engineer Bernhard Goetz, who goes by Bernie, was riding the subway in New York City when he spots 4 black teenagers eyeing him. So these teenagers are Troy Canty, Barry Allen, James Ramser, and Daryl Cabey. So the 4 of them kind of, like, move where they're, like, surrounding Goetz. And Goetz says that they demanded, give me $5, and so Goetz says, I have $5 for each of you, and he pulls a handgun out and shoots all 4 of them.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
I think that's more than $5.
Yeah, a little bit. So the conductor approaches them, and Goetz says that they tried to rob him. The conductor asked if he was a police officer, and he says no, and the conductor tries to get him to hand over the gun, which... This led me down a rabbit hole of, like, do conductors have some kind of, like, police authority? Nope, they don't, so I don't know what this guy was doing, but just, like...
He was like, citizen arrest?
Right? He's like, just give me the gun, bro, it'll be a fine. And he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So Goetz jumps off the train and, like, runs through the subway tracks and just, like, disappears into the subway of New York City.
Oh my goodness, that's so dangerous.
Yeah, right? So the boys were shot in the chest and the back. So all 4 of them did live. But Gaby was permanently paralyzed and had pretty severe brain damage. So they said that he had, like, the mental capacity of, like, a child after this. And all of the boys were 18 and 19 years old at the time that this happened. The boys were later found to have sawed-off screwdrivers in their pockets, but neither Goetz nor other witnesses say that they actually brought out these weapons. So... Yeah. People are like, oh, well, they intended to rob him, but they never actually they said, give me $5. And the boys said that, yes, they said, give me $5, but they said they were panhandling and that they weren't, like, robbing him. They were just like, hey, man, give me $5. So for the next 8 days, the city would wonder who this man was. He was dubbed the Subway Vigilante by the media. And many people supported him. Like, he had, like, overwhelming support at this time. So crime was rampant in New York City in the 1980s, and the majority of New Yorkers reported that they had been mugged on the subway before. So now you have this guy who's like, oh, these guys were going to mug me, and I said, nope, not today, and I shot him, and so they're all, like, in favor of him.
They're all like, yes, finally, somebody, like, stood up for us.
Yes, they're like, the criminal justice system isn't working here, and nothing is getting done, and so finally somebody, like, as vigilantes do, took the law into his own hands, and so we support him. And so there were, like, protests, like, outside the police department that was, like, justice for the subway vigilante, and, like, when you find him, you don't need to arrest him, like, all this stuff. And at this point, they don't even know who this man is. Like, so during these 8 days, so Bernhard Goetz went home, and he packed a bag, rented a car, and he drove to Bennington, Vermont. And this information came from the Wikipedia article, but it says that he burned the jacket he was wearing, he dismantled his revolver, and he scattered the pieces in the woods in this town in Vermont. And so he traveled around New England and stayed at various hotels using different names and paying in cash. And on December 26th, an anonymous tip was called in to the New York police that Bernie Goetz matched the suspect description. He owned a gun, and he had been mugged previously, which is going to be a very important factor in this case. And so Goetz called his neighbor on December 29th, and she told him that police had been there looking for him because they got this tip, so they went to check it out, and it's like, oh, he disappeared the day this happened. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So on December 30th, he drove to Concord, New Hampshire, to the police headquarters and told the officer on duty that he was the man they were looking for in New York. So, like I said, he had been mugged before. So in January of 1981, Goetz was carrying some equipment, and he was mugged by 4 assailants. And so they, like, kicked him in the knee, so he ended up, like, injuring his knee. They tried to shove him through a glass door. 3 of them got away, and then the last one was arrested, but he was only held at the police station for a few hours, and then he was released with no charges filed. So Goetz is pissed, because he's like, this is happening everywhere, and this just happened to me, and now I'm terrified, and no one's done anything about it, and no one's going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So he later filed for a concealed carry permit, but he was denied. And New York City has fairly strict gun laws in general. I don't know how different they were in the 80s, but, like, it's not, like, you have to have a reason to get a weapon. You can't just say, oh, I just want one. And, like, in Tennessee, you can just say, oh, I want one, you go through the precautions, and then you have it done. But you have to have, like, a justifiable reason. So he was denied because they're like, you have no reason to carry a gun. So he went down to Florida where it was legal and bought a gun and brought it to New York City, which was illegal.
I was about to ask, is that illegal?
No. Yes. Yes, you're not allowed to do that, but that's what he did. So again, this case blew up in the media. Like, you just have people all over the place, like, supporting him because they're like, this happens to me all the time. Finally, someone did something about it.
Yeah.
So, at the time, Senator Alphonse D'Amato said that he would testify for Goetz. Now, this is somebody who's never met Goetz, but he just, like, agrees with what he did. But I wrote down this quote because I was just so mad. So he said, quote, these young, and he pauses, so he's trying to come up with a word to say, these young thugs approach you. They don't even have to threaten you. They're just menacing by their presence. I just felt so much fury when he said this because I'm like, okay, if these were 4 white teenagers standing there, would they be, quote, menacing by their presence? Like, you literally just said they don't even have to threaten you. They're menacing just standing there. How is that not fucking blatant, obvious racism? I just do not understand.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's just like, really? And, like, they're like 18 or 19. Like,
yeah,
how big can they honestly be?
Like, yeah, just like, okay. So, now, here comes the lovely NRA. So, they got to jump in the middle of this.
Oh, they always got to jump in the middle.
So, in the 1980s, the NRA was mostly, like, pro, like, hunting. So, like, we want Americans to be able to have access to weapons for, like, hunting and taking care of their families and so on and so forth. So, this case...
Which is understandable.
Yes. Yeah, we're not saying ban all guns. We're not saying that. But this was the case that the NRA used to begin their self-defense stance. So at this time, they're like, this is why we need to increase access to guns, because when this happens, now people can take care of themselves. So, like, the NRA just, like, grabbed Goetz, and they're like, you're our spokesman now, we're going to use you for this.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Daryl KB was the one who was permanently paralyzed and did have brain damage. So his mom received all kinds of hate mail, which was full of racial slurs. But, you know, this wasn't racist. This had nothing to do with race, according to everyone. This is just a guy taking care of himself. Yep.
All those senators were probably like, I don't see color, which is not the goal.
It's not the goal, what you want. Nope, it's not. And so now people are like, some people, not a large percentage yet, but some people are starting to say, like, look, like, you know, the black community is like, obviously this was racially motivated. Like, you would not have reacted the same way for, quote, menacing white teenagers standing there or even approaching you and asking you for money. Like, clearly. But, you know, Goetz's lawyer brings out the whole, Goetz has black friends, so obviously he's not racist.
He worked with the black guy once. There's no way he can be racist.
Yeah, there's no way. So then things take a turn. So on February 27th, 1985, the DA releases the tape of Goetz being interviewed right after he turned himself into police. And these quotes are very chilling. So Goetz says, quote, "When I saw the smile on his face and the shine in his eyes that he was enjoying this," referring to the teenager who asked him for money, he says, "it was at that point I decided I was going to kill them all." And he says, after he shot Gaby the first time, he said, quote, "You seem to be doing all right. Here's another," and shot him again.
Goodness gracious.
And so the evidence would show that Gaby was only hit once, but Goetz's weapon was fired 5 times. So it's unclear, like, when he missed. People would later say that Goetz didn't say this, but Goetz himself said that he said this. So it's like, did he mutter it under his breath? Did he, like... Yeah. But these are Goetz's words after he turns himself in. After he's had 8 days to think about it, this is what he chooses to say.
Yeah.
He then goes on to say, quote, "I wanted to kill those guys. I wanted to maim those guys. I wanted to make them suffer every way I could. I would have shot them again, but I ran out of bullets. I was going to gouge their eyes out with my keys." End quote. That's not self-defense. That's not self-defense. You're not trying to protect yourself from getting mugged. You were trying to murder these 4 boys. Like,
that's what I'm thinking. Is it's like, I'm sure it's like scary if like you think you are being mugged or whatever and you're worried, but this whole scenario, they're like, give me $5. It's like, is 4 people's lives really like worth like not giving $5? And like, I mean, I would understand if they did pull, like, a screwdriver and he felt threatened, but they didn't. They were just standing there.
That's the thing. Yeah. So,
and, like, how many witnesses are, like, did they actually even say anything? That's my thing, is, like, did he just be like, oh, I bet you were trying to mug me? Like, I don't know, but I bet you were, so I'm just going to shoot you anyway.
Because you were menacing by your presence, so therefore you must have been trying to do this. So after this statement came out, he lost some support, but not all of the support. There's still a lot of people that supported him, but it became more of a divide at this point. And people are like, okay, clearly this is more than just you felt threatened and you reacted on instinct. Like, you, since you were mugged 3 years ago, you've been waiting on the opportunity to get back at those guys.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, a lot of people are like, look, why else would you have a sawed-off screwdriver in your pocket? Okay, maybe they were going to mug him, but they didn't. That's the thing. Like, you can't assume that just because they had this on him and they had this intention, they never actually did anything. Maybe they were going to mug someone else.
He never knew that they had that screwdriver, right?
Yes. No, he didn't know. They were in their pockets. Goetz did not see it. He did not report seeing it. None of the witnesses reported actually seeing them.
Yeah, so exactly. It's like, how threatened were you really? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, Goetz was charged with 4 charges of attempted murder, 4 charges of assault, and illegal possession of a gun. And so 2 of the boys testified at the trial that they, like I said, did ask him for money, but they were panhandling and that they were not planning to mug him. Gaby did come out, like, maybe 15 years later and said, no, we were going to mug him. But again, Gaby is the one that has severe brain damage, so take that statement for what it's worth. And 2, intention does not equal action. So even if that was your plan, you had not done anything yet to warrant being shot. And so, of course, it got brought up that they did have the screwdrivers in their pockets, but no one reports actually seeing them. So, Bernhard Goetz was convicted of illegal possession of a gun.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh.
Yep. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail without probation, and he served 8 months.
I hate everything.
Yep.
I have no words. Sorry, I know that was like a long pause on the podcast, but I just have no words.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to say to that?
Nope. And so in the Netflix documentary, they interviewed some of the jurors, and, well, they didn't interview. It was, like, they showed clips from the news, like, right after. And so the jury said that race didn't even come into their discussion. What? How could it not? How could it not come into your discussion?
And I think the thing is, too, that, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, well, it was the 80s, but this shit would happen today, too. Like, this shit still happens today. And I think that's what's so infuriating, is hearing this story and it happened at all. And then I'm sitting here thinking about it and being like, well, hopefully it's just because it's the 80s. But no, it's not. It would be happening today. Like, this happens all the time. Like,
Ahmaud Arbery was murdered a couple months ago by, quote, vigilantes who claimed that he robbed a house that he did not actually rob. And they hunted and chased this man down and murdered him. And this was a few months ago. So
and they were trying to say race did not matter. And then an audio clip comes out, them calling him a racial slur. So
Yep.
I hope you all 3 rot in prison for the rest of your pathetic lives.
Yes.
And I'm not sorry for saying that.
Nope. But who did not rot in prison was Bernhard Goetz. So, the Gaby family did file a civil lawsuit a month later, but it was not tried until 1996. So this is 12 years later. So I don't know why that is. It didn't really say. But the Netflix series did show clips from the civil trial. And so during this trial, Goetz admits that at a community meeting at his apartment building 18 months before the shooting, he said that the only way we're going to clean up this street is to get rid of the insert black and Hispanic racial slur.
Oh, goodness.
Yep. Yeah, but it wasn't racially motivated at all.
Nope, not at all.
Of course not.
Guys, he had a black friend. He's not racist.
Yeah, you can't possibly be racist. You talked to that one black guy that time. And so the Gaby family did win $43 million in damages, but Goetz at this point is broke from all of these lawsuits, and so he soon filed for bankruptcy, and the most recent quote I could find from him was 2004, and he said that he had not yet paid a penny of this. So he's likely never paid the Gaby family anything, but what this does mean is that if he ever comes into any money, it all goes immediately to the Gaby family. So
that's
if
good
Goetz,
at least, but...
Yeah. So if he actually, if he has some good investments, if he wins the lottery, if he sells a house, whatever, any money that he comes into. Bernie Goetz ran for mayor of New York City in 2001.
What?
Yeah. I don't know. This man's fucking insane. I don't know. And so he was interviewed by a radio station in 2017, and they asked him if he regrets this shooting, and he says no, that he doesn't regret this, that he still stands by what he did.
That's just sad.
That is the horrifying story. And, y'all, I was watching this documentary, and so they're showing these protests by the black community at the Bernhard Goetz trial. They're showing flashbacks to the MLK marches, and I'm texting Courtney, and I'm like, I'm just sitting here sobbing because this is 60 fucking years later, and we're out here doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
This is not okay. It's not okay.
It's not okay.
This man shot 4 unarmed black teenagers and went to prison for 8 months because of having a weapon. Because New York City cared more about the fact that this guy illegally had a weapon than the fact that he shot 4 unarmed black teenagers.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I don't even have words. I don't have anything.
Yeah.
I don't even... No. I can't say... I'm just
horrifying.
mumbling over my words over here because it's just...
Yeah.
Oh, man. The world sucks, guys.
It does.
So if it blows up in 2020, maybe it needs a reset. It needs a reset button.
Plug it up. plug it out. Unplug it, plug it back in.
If anyone watches the Good Place and they discover the whole system's messed up and the judge is like, all right, we're just going to reset the earth. That's the only thing to do. Like,
that sounds really good right now. Let's try it.
Reset it. Okay. So mine. I heard about this from an ad on a podcast for this streaming service called Sundance Now. And so there's a documentary series on it called No One Saw a Thing. So all my information comes from this because it was like a 6-part series. There was a lot going on. And so basically this is in Skidmore, Missouri. And on July 10th, 1981, 47-year-old Ken McElroy was gunned down in Skidmore, Missouri in front of around 60 people. And no one's been arrested for the murder, and no one in the town has talked for the past 39 years.
Well.
Yeah. So, let's dive in.
Yes.
Skidmore is a very small town. And it's like in the top corner of Missouri, like way up at the top. And it's very small. So in 1981, it had 437 people living in it.
Wow. And
in the 2010 census, there was only 284 people living there. In this town, yeah. So
that's insane.
Tiny.
I'm pretty sure there's 200 people on my street.
Yeah, right. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's as many people as like in my high school.
Right.
But and in the documentary, they say in 1981 that it was really starting to get some traction, that there were 3 gas stations, and there was a bank and a convenience store, and it was really starting to pick up.
Oh, okay. All right, we're getting there.
Getting there. And this town, it kind of reminds me of our arsonist episode, like Accomack County. They don't like outsiders, like they hate them. It's like, no, like don't come in. So, Ken Rex McElroy was born on June 1st, 1934, and he was the 13th of 14 children.
That's a lot of kids.
A lot of kids. And when you have that many kids, his family was pretty poor. And poor kids were just like kind of looked down on, you know, kind of like pitied. And Ken hated this. He did not like to be looked down upon. He didn't want to be pitied. And his father was really abusive. So they told this story that like Ken, when he was young, like loved animals. And one day they didn't specify what his father was asking him to do. But it was basically abuse to an animal. And so Ken was like, I'm not going to do that. And his father just beat him until he complied.
Oh.
So, great father.
Good start in life. Good start.
And he also had to watch his mom and other siblings be beat as well. And so, obviously, like, people who are abused sometimes grow up to be abusers. So I think that's really kind of what happened here. Ken did end up having 5 wives in his lifetime, and estimated 16 to 19 kids. So they're not even sure how many kids he had. Yeah.
That's a lot of children.
Yeah, he was getting busy a lot.
Getting real busy. Whew.
So his wife at the time of the murder, her name was Trina McLeod, and he started dating her when she was 14.
Oh.
And he was 37.
Oh.
No. He was 20.
Was she actually his child? Because, I mean, he had so many in such a small town. There's probably a good percentage that you accidentally had one, I mean.
Yeah, he was 23 years older than her. And his daughter said, like, yeah, he usually liked, like, young girls, like, the average age being 14.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If you want to date someone 23 years younger than you, that is completely fine as long as they are a legal adult.
And that you're not picking them up from their high school.
Yes, that's a problem.
Because that's what he did.
Problem.
So.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it gets worse. Okay. It gets worse, guys. So then at age 16, Trina did accuse him of rape. And then later she said she only did it because she was jealous because he wouldn't leave his wife. So when she accuses him and, you know, is about to go to trial, he does what any reasonable man would do and goes out of state and marries her. So, and now he has 2 wives, which is also illegal. So,
so I know you can't be forced to testify against your spouse, but if you've illegally married someone, do they legally count as your spouse for that?
I really don't know. And I don't know if, like, she just wouldn't, I don't understand, like, why she couldn't just be, like, drop the charges, because you can only go after it, like, if the victim wants to, but I don't really know. I guess they were just like, all right, well, can't do this one.
Well, I know sometimes, like, if you're underage, like, you can try to drop them and they don't have a choice. I don't know if that's
true,
depends,
too.
like, per state.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
But there was also rumors that, because he had to get her parents' permission to marry him because she was 16, and they said no because he's fucking 37, and he burnt their house down.
Oh, okay. That's an average reaction. Yeah.
So, and then Trina says it's not true, that it was bad wiring. But the timing seems a little suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So, Trina was, to me, because Kevin was there too, and he was like, what do you think? I was like, she seems a little brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, like, I don't know. She seems like Ken could do no wrong, and that he was the best man ever, and she would defend him until the day she died, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're 14 years old, and this man, 23 years older than you, he's manipulating you. Like, there's a clear reason this is illegal. So, I mean, that would make sense. Like,
yeah. But, and I mean, they even, like, they were married, had 2 kids, and she was still just, this man's perfect. Like, anyway. So, Ken's daughter says there was abuse, but that the kids never really saw it. So her mom, not Trina, like his previous wife, like she'd have black eyes and bruises, but they never like saw him like actually beating her, but like they knew it was happening, basically. So Ken's kind of a bully. He's not really a great guy. And he literally like terrorized the entire town of Skidmore. And he was like 6'2", 6'3", and so he's like a big guy, and he's just like picking on like anyone smaller than him, on the women, on the kids, and the town was like, if you crossed him, he would not let it go. Like, he would not. And like someone even said like people started locking their doors because of Ken.
wow.
Like, they used to just go to bed, not lock their doors, and then they were like, this guy's crazy, lock your doors. So there's a man, his name's Romaine Henry, and he was a local farmer, and one day he was driving, and like Ken stops him and was like, I see that you've been at my house, like I saw you driving down there in this car, and the guy's like, no, like I don't have that car, I don't know what you're talking about, and Ken shot him in the stomach. And so when they went to court, Ken miraculously had 2 witnesses saying he wasn't there, that he was somewhere else. He had 2 alibis out of nowhere.
Interesting. Were they the same alibi, or were they conflicting
they didn't say, but, and so Ken did have, like, an endless record of, like, felonies, aggravated assault, like, murder, all this stuff, like, indicted on, like, 21 accounts.
Wow.
But he got off on all of them except 1. So, one day, these 2 little girls, I'm just going to go ahead and spoiler, it's Ken's daughters.
Like I said, the whole town, I mean, there's like a, 50% chance that somebody in the town is Ken's daughter, so.
So they came into the convenience store, and the lady said, like, she didn't recognize him, but that she thought they'd, like, picked up some candy and, like, taken it and not paid for it. So the 2 girls were really upset, and so Trina comes down, and she's trying to settle it. And she said it didn't go anywhere, and then the convenience store people said that she said, well, you're about to meet Kenneth McElroy. So he's pissed because the store is accusing his daughters of stealing, and they said he would literally, for like, I think it was like a few months, a few weeks, drive by the store, drive by the owner's house, like all this stuff. Just like tormented them.
Gosh.
And so then one day, he decides to confront the store owner, who's Mr. Bowenkamp, and he pulls a gun and shoots him.
Oh,
so,
okay.
McElroy was arrested, and, like, people in the town were like, yeah, like, we saw them harassing them, like, we saw all this stuff happened, and somehow McElroy just gets released on bond.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Ken's white.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I was watching the documentary, and I was like, I haven't seen a single person of color in this whole town, except, like, a reporter who came in, and so I'm pretty sure, like, I looked it up, and, like, the whole town's white.
Yeah.
there was like a town marshal, and he was going to be like, yeah, I'm going to testify about like what happened. And McElroy came up to him and said, well, I believe in killing any son of a bitch who tries to put me in the pen.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
And, I mean, the town is like terrified. And then he does go to trial, and he's found guilty. So all these people in the trial testified against him, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then his attorney files an appeal, and because of that, Ken gets released on bond. So wow. Ken is back in the town full of people who just testified against him.
Oh.
So on the morning of July 10th, the town had a meeting with the sheriff there. And they're like, we are concerned about our safety. Like, what are we going to do? Like, he's out on bond. He's going to torment us. Like, we're terrified. And they don't really say, like, what their conclusion was. But after the meeting, the sheriff did conveniently drive out of town and just left.
Oh, okay.
And McElroy was coming into town. So McElroy and his wife were in a bar. And so they leave and they go into their pickup. And then she says that as soon as they leave, everyone just, like, walks out behind them, like, follows them out. And they get in the car, and Trina says it's, like, the whole town. And, like, people, like, they were interviewing, like, the citizens, and they were like, oh, there was, like, 12 people there. And then the people were like, there was, like, 50 people there. There was, like, this many. And, like, everyone's conflicting. But, like, they did end up shooting McElroy and killing him. And then they kind of, like, pulled Trina out of the truck and went and put her in the convenience store. And they were like, just sit here. Yeah. Like, goodbye. And they killed him. So, right there on the main street in the town. Wow. The police had nothing to work with ballistics because they picked up all the shotgun shells. And there was, like, 3 different, like, calibers. And so people are like, there was 2 shooters. There was 4 shooters. There was 3. We don't know. And, like, a bunch of people in the town were like, yeah, I know who did it, like, but I'm not saying, like, I'm not gonna talk, like...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they couldn't prove anything, because so many people were there, you can't charge, like, everyone. Yeah. You can't charge a whole town, is basically what they said. And someone in the documentary as well said that they didn't register rifles or handguns back then, and he said that they still don't. Oh. That you don't register your weapon. Okay. So even if you, like, were like, it's this gun, you can't trace it back to anyone.
Uh-huh.
Because
they're not registered. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and from a motive perspective, I mean, it seems like everyone except Trina and her kids benefit from his death.
Right, you're like, the whole town had a motive.
And, like, the town was just pissed because they're like, all right, the justice system keeps failing us. Uh-huh. Like, he's been charged and all this stuff. He keeps getting out. He literally was just convicted of murder, and now he's out again. So they're like, we'll just take matters into our own hands. Mm-hmm. So Trina says a man named Del Clement shot her husband. So he was a rancher and a tavern owner. And she said she shot him twice when she was in the truck, and then 2 times when she was out of the truck. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I saw him, it was him. And Del Clement and Ken did have a lot of tension because they said, like, Del Clement owns, like, the one bar, basically, in the town. Mm-hmm. And any day Ken would come in, he would lose a bunch of money because nobody else wanted to come in. Yeah. Because they were like, I don't want to be around him. And Trina said, my husband never had any trouble with anybody.
Oh, but the whole town disagrees.
Like, your husband shot at least 2 people in this tiny-ass town.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I'm telling you, she seemed brainwashed. So, but no one else ever comes forward. No one else is going to testify. Mm-hmm. And they say, like, half the town's citizens saw it. So Trina and her kids do disappear because she's worried for her safety, which she probably should be, because someone in the documentary was like, well, whoever did this was stupid, because I would have killed the wife, too, so you don't have a witness.
Oh,
it's like, okay, what did I do then? Oh. So, and then all the McElroy's children also kind of went into hiding.
Well, that's why the town is so small now, because all the McElroys left.
Right? They just all left.
Decreased population by 600.
All the McElroys left. We're down to 200 people. And so Del Clement is never arrested, never indicted. I mean, the only evidence is Trina's words. And they were like, homicide's a heavy charge to go based only on one woman's words. But, I mean, this is also like a white woman and a white man, so probably would mean something else, because I have another little side story about the county of Nodaway, which is what Skidmore is in. I have a little history of vigilantism, apparently, because there was a black boy named Raymond Gunn, and he was accused, and they say he confessed, which we all know how confessions go, even today, to murdering and raping a white school teacher in Maryville, Missouri, which was about 14 miles from Skidmore. So the town broke him out of jail, beat him, tied him to the roof of the schoolhouse of the victim, poured gasoline on the schoolhouse and him, and set it on fire and watched it burn and killed him. Yeah.
I'm just sitting here with my mouth open.
Yeah. So,
oh my god.
Obviously, this county, they need to light some sage in that county, because there's some bad juju. So,
Good god. That's horrifying.
But yeah, I'm just like watching like this crazy story, and then this crazy story happens, and it just keeps getting crazier.
Yeah.
So the town is kind of torn, because a lot of people are like, he deserved it, let's move on. We just had to take justice in our own hands. And others were like, well, this is kind of like vigilantism. It's not really like lawful. And then a lot of people believe the sheriff was covering up the murder as well, because he conveniently left right when this happened. And so Trina is like, you know what? You're right. That is suspicious. I'm calling in the FBI.
Oh, okay.
So the FBI comes in because they think the sheriff may have committed a federal crime, because like if he's involved in the murders, like he's abusing his power, which nope, not gonna make a comment. All right. So, and like apparently it's a federal offense to use your power as a sheriff to kill a citizen, but the federal grand
I would hope so.
yeah, right. The federal grand jury didn't indict anyone. There's no evidence that the sheriff was involved or knew anything, and they were like,
But he left town right after this town meeting, right before this guy was murdered.
Yeah. I mean, it seems suspicious, but they also were like, it's all hearsay, and no one is going to testify to the fact that what happened at this town meeting. So they're like...
If the sheriff's, like, gone, is there, like, an acting sheriff?
There's a town marshal.
Okay.
So, because I don't know, he was the one who... When Ken shot the convenience store owner, he's the one who was going to testify and be like, all this stuff. So I just think it was just the sheriff and no one else. So they were just like, because a lot of people were like, yeah, I heard gunshots, and my dad drove down and was like, hey, yeah, don't go down there. There's like just blood in the road. Like people, they just left it. He was just like dead with blood on the road, and they were like, bye.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. So basically, the FBI is like, if the state wants to charge him, like, you can, but there's, like, no evidence. Like, we really don't think, like, if we go to trial, there's anything that could, like, convict him because of reasonable doubt. So, and a few people are like, I really want to come forward and say who did it, but then I'm afraid I'm going to get killed, like, if I'm a snitch.
Yeah, absolutely, in that town.
Yeah, right? And many believe, like, if they took anyone to court, they would just acquit them, so it's, like, useless. 3 years later, Trina did file a civil lawsuit, and she was seeking $11 million. So she filed it against Dale Clement, Steve Peters, who was the mayor of Skidmore, Danny Estes, which is the sheriff that they thought was involved, and the whole city of Skidmore.
Oh.
But she ended up settling out of court for $17,000, which is a lot less. And this is kind of like when she, like, officially leaves town, and she's like, I'm never going back. I'm done. Goodbye. But yeah, and the town in general is just super conflicted, and they're just like, because some people, they're like, yeah, good. He's gone. He was a bully. He was so mean. He was horrible. And then other people are like, but did he deserve it? Even though he's horrible, like, he should have gone to jail. He should have gone through the proper means. And so the whole town is just like, eh. And they don't want to talk. They don't want to get killed. So no one's talking. And probably they'll never know.
Wow.
But it doesn't end yet. Because after McElroy's death, there has been at least 9 other strange deaths in Skidmore. Now, remember how big this town is.
That's like 10% of the population.
Yeah. So this is like, I mean, there's 200 to 400 people, and there's, including McElroy, at least 10 suspicious deaths. And they include a young woman whose boyfriend attacked and killed her, another woman who was killed and had her baby cut out of her, a 20-year-old man who went missing and was never found, and people say they also know what happened to him, but they're not talking. And there's a lot of, like, suspicious suicides. So a lot of people are like, okay, if Ken was the problem, if Ken was the whole reason this town was suffering, like, why is there so much violence, like, after his death? Like, why does it keep happening? But they're kind of saying, like, the town is traumatized, and that even, like, the children of the people who know are, like, having to keep this secret and having to, like, live like this. But with these other cases, I could totally do a spin-off if that's what you guys want, because they are insane. Like, they are crazy stories that happened. So if you want that, definitely let us know, and I can work on that.
Or do, like, a Skidmore miniseries.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, too, because Kevin, like, I was watching it, and Kevin was like, you should talk about this, because this is, like, the craziest thing I've ever heard, and it's happening in this town of, like, 300 people. Like,
that is insane. I need to go watch this documentary now.
You should. You can get, like, a week free trial on Sundance now, but I used a podcast code and got a month free. I don't want to say it on this podcast, because I don't want to...
Can you say what the podcast was so, like, people can listen to the podcast and get it from there?
Oh, well, it was on Crime Junkie. They just have an ad for the Sundance Now thing. So, but yeah, and so that is the story of Ken McElroy and the town of Skidmore and the town that still won't talk. So, it's crazy.
That is an insane story, and I definitely think that we should cover some of those other mysterious deaths and figure out what the hell is going on in Skidmore, because that's insane.
It's crazy, yeah. Like, hearing the other stories, because, I mean, it was like a 6-episode series, and so the first 3 were really about Ken, and I was, like, talking to Kevin, I was like, I don't know, I feel like they could have shortened it, you know, and then they started talking about all this other stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, what is happening?
This is a rabbit hole. Yeah. Here we go. Wow, that is... It's quite the story.
Yeah. When I stumbled upon this, I was so excited to tell you this story, because it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, we will definitely make sure and cover some of those. And if you live near Skidmore, please email us and let us know, because we want to talk to you.
If you know who did it, tell me, because I just want to know. Because they were basically saying, like, the statute of limitation has expired on everything except the murder. So, because they're trying to tell people, like, you won't get in trouble if you come forward, like, just tell us. And, like, other people in there were like, yeah, well, they took the guns and they threw them in the river. Like, yeah, I know what they did with, you know, like, everybody just knows. And it's crazy that this whole town could keep quiet. Like, yeah.
Wow, that is crazy.
But yeah.
Okay.
That was a trip.
That was a trip. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week kind of relates to the state of the world. So, with everything, I did see a lot of people recommending this podcast called Pod Save the People. And it is, I wrote their names down, hold on. It is DeRay, Brittany, Sam, and Clint. And a lot of them are the co-founders for the Campaign Zero organization. And so they have a podcast, and they talk about news, and they talk about just different stuff like that. And they have a lot of statistics and fact-based stuff. And they had an episode about, like, George Floyd, and it was really, really, like, powerful. Like, all their episodes I've listened to so far are really good, but it's really good, and I'm really glad I found it. And I definitely think everyone should go listen, because it is, like, a different perspective and a lot of, like, fact-based things, because I love science and facts.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make that my perk of the week, give them a shout out. If you do have money, you can donate to Campaign Zero. They're trying really hard to eliminate police brutality through fact-based studies and things like that. So, yeah, that is my perk of the week. Jaclyn, what is yours?
So my perk of the week, yesterday, Andrew and I took the dogs down to the James River, and so here in Richmond, there's a lot of different access points, and there's this one that we went to, there's like a bunch of like little hiking trails, and then we took Rosie's like long 30-foot leash so that she could like go swimming in the river, and this was like the best day of this dog's entire life. Like
living her best life.
Was like sprinting. Yes, like up and down, like rolling in the mud, just like this dog loves water, and so she was just like splashing all around. And we hiked probably like 4 miles total. And it was just really nice, and it was nice to get out, and it was hot, but it's like very shaded, so like it, you know, still felt pretty cool. But just being able to get out of the house, but still be able to maintain social distance, and you know, because there were some people there, but no one's like super close together, and there weren't nearly as many people as I was expecting. But yeah, it was just very nice to get out of the house and take the dogs on a little adventure and get some exercise. And yeah,
that sounds really nice. I've been really wanting to find somewhere around me where I can like get out and go somewhere and there won't be like a buttload of people. That's the hard part. Because we have like the Great Smoky Mountains, and there's like Cades Cove, but I hear it's like bumper to bumper traffic, and Kevin's like, nope, we're not going. And people down here don't believe COVID's real, so social distancing is hard, but yeah, hopefully I'll find somewhere. If you guys have any recommendations, if you live here, let me know.
Or Courtney and Kevin can just come visit us, and we can all go.
I mean, that's true, but you don't have AC.
That's true. I do not have AC. It's a little toasty.
Because I know that you're in the room that I would be sleeping in.
It's a little. At least you can turn on a fan when you're in here sleeping. I can't turn on a fan right now because that's all my microphone's gonna pick up.
We should be like the whole time. Yeah.
So at the end of the summer, Courtney will finally come visit me again.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to come visit you soon because I was supposed to be up there, but hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen with the world, guys, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of on hold. Just a reminder that we are running 2 contests, so once we reach 100 followers on Instagram, our Instagram handle is @CaffeinatedCrimesPod. Once we reach 100 followers there, we are going to randomly select someone to win one of our stickers, pins, and a $10 gift card to a coffee shop of your choice. And then we're going to do the same thing for another winner once we reach 50 reviews on Apple Podcasts. So make sure and go do both of those things so that you guys can be entered into our contest. You can also email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. And if you feel so inclined, you can go donate to us on patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes. Right now we have, I think, 3 bonus episodes out. Yeah. I think we have 3 bonus episodes currently. You also, anytime we do a 2-part episode, you'll get both parts the same day. So like BTK just came out a couple of episodes ago, so our Patreon folks got part 1 and 2 the same day, and then they got a bonus episode the next week. We also do a monthly Google Hangout, so a lot of cool perks, so definitely go check it out if that's something that you would be interested in. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's it. So go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.